All right, let's talk about teams. We've all been there, right? You've been on a team that just clicks, everything flows, you get amazing things done, and, well, you've probably been on the other kind too, the kind that just doesn't work. You know, teamwork is one of those skills that everyone says is critical, but it's also ridiculously hard to get right. So today we're gonna break down the science of what really makes great teams tick. Let's dive in. I mean, really, why is it so tough? This question probably brings back a few memories, doesn't it? Maybe that group project in school where you did all the work, or those meetings at work that just go round in circles and nothing gets decided. The simple truth is, getting a bunch of unique individuals to act as one single cohesive unit, well, it's a massive, massive challenge. And look, this isn't just a hunch or a feeling we all have. The data backs it up. In one big survey, 80% of companies said they use teams. That's a huge number. But here's the kicker. Of all those teams, only a tiny 14% were rated as highly effective. Think about that. That means the vast, vast majority of teams out there are underperforming. So that's what we're gonna tackle in this explainer. First, we'll dig into why teams fail so often. Then, we're gonna lay out the actual blueprint for an effective team. After that, we'll get into the nitty-gritty playbook for building one. And finally, we'll cover how to handle and even master team conflict. Okay, let's start with that paradox. Why is this thing that we all know is so valuable so often a total train wreck? You know, when you boil it down, the dilemma is really personal. First off, you have to give up a slice of your independence. Suddenly, your success is tied to what other people do or don't do. Second, you have to deal with free riders. You know the type, the ones who do a bit of social loafing while everyone else picks up the slack. And finally, teams can just get stuck in these dysfunctional ruts, bogged down in negativity and office politics. It's draining. And these dysfunctions, they're not random. They're actually a chain reaction. See, it all starts with a lack of trust. When people don't trust each other, they're afraid to be vulnerable, and that leads to a fear of healthy conflict. Without that good debate, you don't get real commitment to decisions. And if people aren't bought in, they avoid holding each other accountable. And all of that leads to the ultimate failure, a total inattention to the team's actual results. Now, effective teams, they flip this whole pyramid upside down. They start with trust, which allows for healthy conflict, which leads to commitment, accountability, and a laser focus on results. The legendary coach Vince Lombardi just absolutely nailed it with this. It's that personal, individual commitment to the group that makes the magic happen. That's the secret sauce. That's what we're aiming for. So how do we actually get that commitment? How do we build it? Well, let's look at the blueprint for what makes a team successful. This model gives us a really solid framework. Think of it like a recipe. Team effectiveness, being productive, happy, and adaptable, that's the final dish. It doesn't just happen on its own. It depends on getting the ingredients right. You need the right organizational context, like good leadership and a supportive culture. You need the right team composition, the right people in the right roles, and so importantly, you need the right team processes, the way the team actually works together. Get those inputs right, and you're setting yourself up for success. Okay, with that blueprint in hand, let's get super practical. This is the playbook for actually putting together a high-performing team. For any team to really fire on all cylinders, it needs a balance of two fundamental roles. On one hand, you have the task specialist. This is the person who's all about getting the job done. They bring up new ideas, they give opinions, they push things forward. On the other hand, you have the socio-emotional specialist. Their focus is on the team's health and well-being. They encourage people, they smooth over disagreements, they keep the vibe positive. See, a team with only task specialists will burn out, and a team with only socio-emotional specialists might feel great but get nothing done. You absolutely need both. You also have to remember that teams go through a journey. They evolve through 5 pretty predictable stages. First up is forming. That's the honeymoon phase where everyone's polite and trying to figure things out. Then comes storming. This is where personalities clash and disagreements pop up. And listen, this stage is so critical. A lot of teams think this is a sign of failure, but it's not. It's a totally necessary step. If you can get through it, you reach norming, where you start to gel and establish rules. That sets you up for performing, which is that awesome state of high-level problem solving. And then, of course, for some teams, there's adjourning when the project is done and it's time to wrap up. This brings us to one of the most powerful forces in any team, and it's often invisible, the team's norms. These are the unwritten rules, the informal agreements about how things are really done around here. Is it okay to challenge an idea? Do we start meetings on time, or is 5 minutes late the standard? These norms, more than almost anything else, dictate how a team operates and, ultimately, whether it succeeds or fails. And speaking of norms, Google actually did this massive study, Project Aristotle, to figure out the secret to the perfect team. And what they found was kind of mind-blowing. It wasn't about having the smartest people or the best experts in the room. Nope, the most successful teams had strong norms around psychological safety, where everyone felt safe enough to take risks and be vulnerable. They also had equal participation, meaning everyone got a chance to talk. No one person dominated the conversation. The big takeaway? How a team works together is way more important than who is on the team. Now, in our modern world of remote and hybrid work, these ideas are more crucial than ever. When you're not physically together, you can't rely on those random water cooler chats to build relationships. Leaders have to be way more intentional about it. You have to actively build psychological safety, check in on progress, and find ways to build trust. Like, say, setting aside the first 10 minutes of a video call for some non-work social chat. It really works. Okay, this brings us to our final section, and it might just be the toughest challenge of all: how to handle the conflict that is absolutely going to pop up in any team. So here's a really critical distinction to make. Not all conflict is bad. In fact, some of it is good. Task conflict, that's disagreements about the work itself, about goals or ideas, that can actually lead to better decisions. It sharpens your thinking. But relationship conflict, that's personal. It's about interpersonal friction. That stuff is almost always destructive. So the real trick is to encourage debate about the work while shutting down personal attacks. This means the goal isn't to get rid of all conflict. A team with too little conflict is probably suffering from groupthink, and their performance will be low. A team with way too much conflict is just chaotic. The sweet spot, the place where teams perform at their absolute best, is right in the middle, a moderate level of healthy, task-focused conflict. Now, when conflict does happen, we all have different ways of dealing with it. You might be dominating, it's my way or the highway, or accommodating, okay, fine, we'll do it your way. You can also just avoid it, compromise somewhere in the middle, or truly collaborate to find a new solution. The secret here isn't that one style is the best. The secret is flexibility. The most effective team members have a whole toolkit, and they adapt their style to whatever the situation needs. And if you want to get to one of those amazing win-win solutions, there are 4 basic rules to follow. First, you have to separate the people from the problem itself. Don't make it personal. Second, focus on the underlying interests, the why behind what people want, not just their stated demands. Third, you have to genuinely listen and ask questions to understand where they're coming from. And finally, you ground the final decision in objective, fair standards that everyone can agree on. So as we wrap things up, I want to leave you with a question to think about. On the last team you were on, what role did you naturally fall into? Were you the task specialist, always pushing the work forward? Or were you more of the socio-emotional supporter, the one making sure everyone felt heard and connected? And maybe more importantly, as you look ahead, what role does your next team really need you to play? Because understanding that and being able to step into that role, well, that might just be the key to unlocking your team's greatness.